Hi there everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all managed to remain safe and you're all COVID free, as are your families, and obviously my thoughts also go out to those poor souls over in Ukraine and what's happening there. It's a real world, and even though this is a cooking video, we can't deny the fact that there's some heavy shit going down. So anyone over there, my thoughts are with you, and hopefully you're all managing to remain safe and we can get a resolve out of this. So let's crack on. Today's recipe is Italian cheese and herb subs. I use these primarily for my wheat ball sandwiches, so you'll see these with some wheat balls at the end after I've made them. But another thing that I actually make them for is hot dogs. They're not the same as a hot dog bun because they're subs, but they make a really nice stiff hot dog roll as well. So that's the two things that I primarily make these for. So let's crack on and do this, and as I says, I hope everyone out there is safe. So let's do this. So the first thing we're looking to do is to measure out 600 grams of strong bread flour. That's really any very strong flour with 14 grams of protein or thereabouts of protein. Now the one I use is from Costco. It's Manitoba very strong bread flour. It's the one that comes in the huge big sack with a Canadian maple leaf on it. Another really good one is Allison's very strong bread flour. Both are fantastic, but the Manitoba, because you're buying it in bulk, comes in at a far better price per gram, so it's why I choose that one over the Allison's. Then we want to measure out, I know this sounds like a lot, but we want to measure out 5 teaspoons of fast action or active yeast, whichever way you call it. Now I've switched to this particular brand here for the same reason as the flour. Price per gram, it is a fantastic value. I pick it up on Amazon, but again, Allison's yeast is another one that I used to use. It works perfectly every time as well. Just price per gram, this works out better and always works for me. So 5 teaspoons. Now making sure our salt doesn't come into contact with our yeast, hence why you saw in the previous clip that I flicked the flour over the top of it. We're going to measure 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt into the same flour as the yeast. And then we're looking to add 2 1/2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. And then to the mixture we're going to add 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. I picked this one up from Whole Foods online, and it is a blend of the most common herbs that's used in Italian dishes brought together into the one mixture. It's yummy! And next up we're going to add some Parmesan type cheese. We're adding 5 tablespoons of very finely grated Parmesan type cheese. This one here is an actual proper Parmesan that I pick up from Costco, but any Parmesan type hard cheese, because if it's not made in that exact region it's not Parmesan, but they can be quite similar. On a side note, I have actually used cheddar in the past. It gives a slightly different roll, a slightly different flavour, and it's still goddamn gorgeous. So if you don't want to go with the Parmesan style, do try it with cheddar, because it gives you something slightly different and both work equally well. Same quantities, 5 tablespoons. And now take and transfer the flour mixture to the bowl that you would use for your dough when you set it aside to rise. The reason I actually measure it into this one is because this bowl is lighter, so it's for my accuracy on my scales. That's all. If your other bowl that you're using for rising is quite light, just measure it all into that one to start with. As soon as that's done, we're then going to take our now empty mixing bowl and we're going to add 5 tablespoons of olive oil to that. And now you have 2 separate options when it comes to the liquid that you're going to use in your ingredient for mixing together your dough. You can either use water at 39 to 45 degrees Celsius. To get that, you're going to need 200 millilitres of cold water, 100 millilitres of boiled water, and that's going to get you in the ballpark. However, my preference is to use a really nice ale. Either an amber ale or a heavy like the one I'm about to show you, but I think they just add much more to the flavour profile than using straight water. On a side note, you can actually use milk as well, but the ale is my preferred way to go. So the one I'm using, the ale I prefer, is Belhaven 80 shillings. It's a really nice tipple to drink, and I think it adds a really nice flavour set to the roll as well. It just adds something more than what the water provides. Now, when it comes to actually heating this, you don't want to stick it in a pan. The fastest, quickest, easiest way to get it up to temperature is generally about 15 to 30 seconds in your microwave. So put it into a measuring jug that is microwave safe. Make sure you're pouring it into the jug down its side so you don't get too much froth, so you're getting an accurate measurement. Again, we're looking for the 300 mils. Once we're at the 300 mils, bung it in the microwave. 15 seconds later, bring it out, check the temperature. If it's too cool, give it another, maybe, well, you see what the temperature's like, but give it another 5-10 seconds, and generally a maximum of 30 seconds is all it takes to get it to temperature. We don't want it too high a temperature. It's better being slightly cooler than slightly hotter, because if it's too hot, it's going to kill your yeast, and you don't want your yeast fried. So that 39 to 45 degrees Celsius mark is again what we're hunting down, is what we're looking for once we microwave it. And once we have our 300 mils of ale at the correct temperature, in this instance it's sitting at 40.1 degrees Celsius, we're going to add that to our mixing bowl that already has our olive oil in it. And then we can immediately add all our other ingredients that are in the bowl that we're going to be using for rising. Now, I used to do this the other way round, but I have definitely come to the realisation that putting the liquid in first, then your dry ingredients, when it goes into your actual machine, your food processor to mix it, the dough comes together much faster. There's less dough sticking to the sides. It's the better way to do it. The manufacturer said that, and for a long time I thought, nah, it's not making any difference. But I really sat down, looked at what was happening, and it saves time, it saves mess, and it brings your dough together quicker, faster, and easier. It's like the dark side of the force. Go that way. Don't do it the way we all tend to do, which is put the dry ingredients in and then the wet. It's better wet than dry when it comes to at least this particular machine, which is the Kenwood Chef. And once the machine starts bringing your dough together, you're going to start your timer and you're going to knead it for 10 minutes. You don't want to start your timer too early whilst it's still not actually in a sort of dough form, but as soon as you see it becoming a dough form, start your timer and knead it for 10 minutes. Now, of course, you can do this by hand if you don't have a machine, but I've got a machine, so I'm going to use the machine. If you don't have it, knead it by hand for 10 minutes until it's all come together. Now, somewhere in the first minute or two, you may need to go into your side walls with a spatula just for any little areas that have stuck initially. I'm saying you need. A lot of the times, if you don't bother, the bowl's still going to be clean at the end because the dough will have picked it up. But my preference is in the first couple of minutes just to check and give it a quick swipe with a spatula if there's anything sticking. And whilst the machine is working away, take some spray oil and just spray it onto the lid that you're going to use on your bowl and spray it into the bowl as well. Give it a little rub round just so you get a nice oiled surface, top and bottom, for when your dough is rising. And largely because I managed to actually get my camera angle at such a position that I could see into the bowl and see the mechanism working, I thought I would also show you what it's like to actually see the dough kneading and the sort of work that does go into it. If you're doing it by hand, this is the sort of level of effort you're going to have to get put into the dough for 10 minutes. If you're doing the machine, it does all the work for you. And as I got the angle, I thought, hey, let's show this. And when it comes out of the machine, this is actually quite a dry dough. There'll be no residue left in your bowl. There'll be no residue left in your handles. There won't even be any residue left on the dough hook either. You can just drag off and it all comes off nice and clean. No tackiness left behind. If that's the way your dough feels, you know you've done it right. It's still nice, soft and pliable, but no residue. And all we do is work it into a ball shape, as you saw me doing on the previous clip. And once it's in a completely nice ball shape, just seal the bottom, put it in your bowl, cover it up, and then we're going to let that rise. Rising time, we're looking at 55 minutes or doubled in size. So if it's not quite doubled in size, put your lid back on and let it rise for another 5, maybe 10 minutes when we're done. That's me again just showing you there's absolutely no residue left behind with this one. So if that's how your bowls come out, you know you've did the dough correctly. Again, it should feel soft and pliable as well though. And whilst our dough is rising, we're going to prepare our couche. A couche is a heavy duty type of cloth specifically to help you get rise in baguettes and sub-tight rolls. I picked this up online, but I can't remember the name of the retailer. With these, all you do is you put some flour on them, leave the flour on there, and it builds up the flour coating as time goes on. Very, very sporadically you may wash it, but overall these cloths don't get washed because that's the nature of them, that's what they're designed to do. So each time you bring it out, a bit of flour on it, but the flour builds up in it over time and helps prevent the baguettes as they rise from sticking to the cloth, but it helps form the shape and get it exactly the way you want it to. So now you've had a cup of tea, 55 minutes have went past and you've set up your couche. Your dough should have risen really nicely as we see here. It's probably slightly more than doubled in size this time. Just take it out of your bowl, knock it back, take some of the air out of it, and then we're going to split it up into the sizes that we need. Because we're making 6 baguettes here, we're going to split it up evenly into 6 pieces, which are going to be around 169 grams each. It might be slightly more, slightly less if you haven't got your measurements bang on, but approximately 169 grams each. And once you have split off your individual sections, we're going to shape them into a sort of rough rectangle, flat sort of shape. Doesn't need to be too flat, doesn't need to be too large. The size of the actual dough cutter I'm using here is about the length that we're looking for when we actually split them down into a sort of rectangle size. They won't be as wide as the dough cutter, but they're going to be roughly the width of the dough cutter, so that's a good estimation size, as most dough cutters I've looked at tend to be of a similar sort of nature and size, so it gives you a rough point to work from. And once we have 6 sections, all of equal size or thereabouts, we're going to sit and let them rest for 10 minutes because it then becomes easier to form our final baguette shape if you've given that little bit of time to rest. You can plough on and go straight into it, but please take the time, let it rest for the 10 minutes, you'll get a better sub baguette at the end. Now this is really the only technical part now when it comes to making the rolls. What you want to do is take half of the baguette, fold it over to the halfway point or just past, and then take the other half, fold it across the top of it, and taking the heel of your hand, press down onto your work surface to create a seal. That creates tension within the within the baguette that you're creating, and helps it rise the way you want it to. As soon as you've did that, take it over to your couche, make a wall to support it either side, and then repeat the process with another one. So I'm demonstrating here at a different angle again. So we're taking and we're folding halfway back towards ourselves, then taking the edge closest to us away from us, and with the heel of your hand press it down to try and get that seal. Sometimes if your dough is too soft, you'll do this twice. You're going to get used to feeling the tension in the actual sub as you form it, and you'll know whether this is a 1-time or a 2-time fold. But it does give a different type of rise. If it's already a stiff feeling one, it will end up slightly denser, slightly smaller, not as much air in your sub if you do it twice, and it's a very stiff dough to start with, which means 90-95% of the time it's one fold for me. Occasionally we're onto the do it and then repeat the process again, but different angle, fold it down, seal it with the heel of the hand after that you've put it from farthest side and then closest side. Hope that makes sense, along with actually seeing the visual. If you need to, you can see the little seal there, just tuck that in with your fingers as well just to seal it. It's all about creating tension in the dough, as I say, to help promote the rise the way you want it, when you want it. And again, repeating it because I want you to be clear on what you're doing, because this is the technical part. Folding towards, once it's at the halfway point, you're then going to fold over, and with the heel of the hand, we're going to press down and we're going to create a seal between the two areas. All about the tension, all about the seal, and it's all about promoting the rise the way that you want it to happen. Well, once we've got that, take it over, bung it in the couche, keep creating walls as you take them over, and when we've got them all, we're then going to take and we're going to fold the couche over the top of the subs, fold it at the sides. If need be, we can put another sackcloth on it, a flour sackcloth, which are very light cloths, which aren't going to deform the actual subs as they rise, and that's us done. And on our second rise here, we're going to set them aside and we're going to leave them for 50 minutes. They may not quite have doubled in size by the end of it, but when you take your cush off and you remove the flour sackcloth, you'll definitely have seen the rise on them. When we're going to put them in the oven, you will get a bit of expansion as well, and because we've put the tension on them, it will rise mostly upwards rather than outwards, which is exactly what we want. Also, we want to cook these in a steamy environment. Now, to achieve that, if your oven is a steam oven, which mine has that function, you're going to put 150 ml of water in the bottom of your oven, in the actual dimple, the area that's designed for holding it. If your oven isn't a steam oven, you're going to put a heat-proof dish in the bottom of your oven to simulate this effect, and you're going to cook it in the fan oven style. So any heat-proof, low-level dish that's suitable for putting in your oven is what you're going to fill up if you don't have, as you see on mine here, that sort of dimpled area, that recessed area within the oven for building up the steam. And for our glaze, we're going to need 5 ml of water and 5 ml of maple syrup. Now, we don't want any more than that because we don't want to soak our rolls, we don't want our sides of our rolls flooded and all sticky, we're just looking for a glaze on the top. So, because this, again, might even still be too much, don't say I'm not good to you, any excess at the end, slam yourselves a maple syrup shot. And now that your second rise is over, we're going to have to be really gentle with the baguettes because we don't want to deform them. They are soft, they can be easily deformed by your hands, so you're going to use a baguette board and you're going to take your wall furthest away from your baguette board and just pull it up and then tuck your board under, and as you see, you can then roll your actual baguettes, your subs, out of the way. We then transfer them over to a silicone lined baking tray and just set them there nicely. But try and work on your spacing as you do it because you don't want to put them on the liner and then try and move them. Now, you might be able to see as I take some of these off how they've risen upwards rather than in all directions at the same time. That's again because of the tension we've worked into it and because of the walls that we've provided with the cush. Both factors are what help you get the rise exactly that way, the way you want it. But be gentle, don't destroy the actual work that you've put in by going in ham-fisted and putting too much pressure on them. That's where the baguette board comes into its own. Trying to just pick them up with your fingers, it's going to lead to some deformities. So if you don't have a baguette board, use something else that you can. Maybe a chopping board if you've got a nice thin plastic chopping board, something like that. The baguette board, I like it because it's sort of shaped specifically for this job at hand. They're not too dear. And once you have it forever. So it's a nice investment if you're going to be making lots of subs. If you're not going to be making lots of subs, it's probably something you can do without and find a substitute that you've already got in your own kitchen that can do the job. This is why I mentioned try and get them in the right place, because I didn't. I wasn't thinking. I was thinking 5 I was making, and I was making a recipe for 6 here. So hence why I had to go in and try and move everything with the board without destroying where I got everything sitting. So it's worthwhile thinking ahead as you put them down to get them distributed the right way. We want to put 3 slices with a really, really sharp knife. The sharper your knife, the better, because it will cut into this without any risk of dragging or destroying the shape of your subs and give you those scores that will go in. You're looking for maybe a centimetre deep, roughly, at most. Not too much shallower than that though. If you can get close to that centimetre cut on each, then you're doing just about perfect. Because when your rolls start to rise, these will break open and expand, and it will give you a lovely effect and texture to your actual subs when they're done. From here we want to add our glaze and our toppings, so just using a silicone brush very, very lightly, go back and forward across the subs until we make sure we've got the entire top coating covered. But we don't want to drown the subs, as I said. If we're using too much and it's all going down the sides, your subs are going to feel tacky at the bottom and not just as nice to hold, where we get just the right amount of glaze on the top, so we're getting a coverage without drowning. We're there. Once we've done that, we're going to add both our Parmesan type cheese and our Italian herbs, and we're just going to sprinkle them back and forward. I tend to start with the Parmesan and then put the herbs on top. I think it gives a nicer visual appearance at the end once it's all cooked. I've tried it both ways. I've not noticed much of a taste difference by going herbs first, cheese second, but visually it's far more appealing to go cheese first and then your herbs, and be as generous as you like for the way that you want it here. I'm generally quite generous and get a little bit of spill of the cheese off the side as well. And now we're ready to stick them in our preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius. If it has the steam function, set it to steam. If it doesn't have that, set it to fan. We're going to have it in here for 18 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. And once our 18 minutes are over, we can remove them from the oven. You can check them at the bottom by giving them a wee tap just to see if they sound hollow. If they sound hollow, you're there. You can see some of the steam still escaping from the oven, so we have the right volume in there. You can see the maple syrup where it's dried. We didn't flood it. We've got nice white side walls, but we've got the maple syrup glaze on the top. That tells us we put the glaze on just about the right amount, not too little, not too much. It's exactly the finish that we're looking for. So we're going to set these aside on a wire rack to cool. If you've got an extra layer of wire racking that you can put on top of it, fantastic, because then you're not going to be disturbing your toppings. If you don't have it, just make sure you cover it. Ideally with flour sackcloths, if you have them, they're much lighter than tea towels, but if you don't have the flour sackcloth, go with tea towels. They do the job really well. This helps keep the moisture in your rolls or subs, any sort of roll bread thing like this you're making. Cover it at the end, and it just helps the crispiness whilst keeping the moisture in as they cool before you're ready to use them. And again here, you just see me tapping the bottom, making sure they sound hollow. They're a bit late now, but you do that when you take them out of the oven, and if they sound hollow, they're absolutely ready. So all we do is we cut along the side, point first, and then drag our heel down into the bottom. I'm putting on my gloves. I've got a penchant for cutting myself with my knives. I've got very sharp knives. I like them to stay that way. But I'm also very, very clumsy, and around sharp blades and being clumsy, it's not a good mixture. So anytime I'm near a sharp blade nowadays, I wear the gloves. I'm not too proud to admit that I've cut myself too many times, so protection now. So in from the tip, down to the heel, and then just separate them with your fingers. You don't want to have cut too far that you've split it all the way in two, unless that's the way you're looking for your sub, but most of the time it's nice just to fill them up from the sides. So tip, take a wee bit more off if you have to, and you're done after you just peel it back to separate it. So you're going to get two endings here, one purely for the rolls, nice soft fluffy rolls. I mean, these are gorgeous, but I'm not going to eat them right away. You're going to eat them on the next, I'm going to eat them on the next edit because I'll be having them with some wheat balls, but I just wanted to give you an idea of them. So lovely. You can see all the aeration throughout it. It's nice, it's springy, it's gorgeous. They are sumptuous. I'm tempted just to take a bite, but I can't because I'm for my dinner with my wheat balls. So we're going to skip now to with these with some content inside them, and then I'm going to yum them down. I might not talk, I might just go yum yum. Excuse me, this may be about to get very messy, as there's a lot of sauce on this. Yeah, it's messy, but it's goddamn gorgeous. Excuse me, sauce all over my hands. So, thanks for watching. If you do make it, let me know. Take care. I'm off to eat my dinner. Bye bye.